Though earlier I introduced you to Simon Anjoroge, who's a valuer, not an adopted child. Simon, if you could just take us through the moment, the day that you realized that you were adopted. How old were you?
I was 8 years old.
Okay, but you were adopted as a baby?
Yeah.
All right, so you were 8 years old. Did you even understand what it meant, and who is it who told you that you're adopted?
Actually, I discovered by myself.
Okay.
What happened, I had a friend of mine whose mother was expectant, and they got a child. And a few months later, we got our younger brother. So I was able to note the difference. And also we realized in school, some children would tell me that you are bought when we can't play with you and such things. So I was able to join the dots and realize, okay, this is why people tell me I was bought. Now I understand the reason why. But at that moment, I didn't understand what actually it meant to be adopted. I thought it was just some normal process that happened to me.
Okay.
I didn't care about it.
And when did you then realize exactly what it means? At what point in your life?
Actually, I realized when my mom passed away. Because I think when she was alive, she kind of shielded us from external pressures, both within and outside the family. So now when she's gone, now people can get the courage to talk.
Okay.
And that's when you realize, you mean I was in this kind of deep trouble. So you start to realize, now you can reflect back and realize, so this is why this happened at this moment.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll come to you. I know I was talking to you earlier. Now you say that you're an advocate for adoption. So, but I'd like to hear from you more of what it is that it did to you when you found out that you were adopted. We move to Pamela Shioya, who's a paralegal. She's also adopted as well. Pamela, how many children have you adopted?
I have adopted one legally, and I am fostering 2 children.
With the intention to eventually adopt them?
Yes.
All right. What is it that motivated you to adopt your daughter, I believe? She's about 4 years old now?
Yeah, she's 4 years old.
But you adopted as a baby?
Yes.
What motivated you?
During the post-elections violence of 2007 and 8, a man just came to my house and left there 2 girls and told me that these children, I'm leaving them here for just 2 days. I'm looking for where we can go. And actually those children stayed in my house for a whole year.
Wow.
And when the time came for them leaving, it was not easy, either for them or for me.
All right.
I remember we both shed a lot of tears.
And so you decided, I want to adopt?
Yes, that time is when I decided I cannot live alone.
So you adopted one. What happened to the other one?
I adopted one child, but that one was not among the ones that were brought in my house. Okay. Yes. I adopted from an adoption agency.
All right.
Yes.
I'll ask you more about that later on. Joram Wenda, who's of course a family law practitioner, a lot of questions surrounding adoption. Who can adopt and who can't adopt?
Anybody can adopt. You just need to be above the age of 25, mentally sound, and not convicted of any offenses that, especially offenses against children, assault. You do not practice homosexuality.
Okay.
Yes, it is specifically provided that homosexuals cannot adopt. And if it is an international adoption, an international sole male applicant cannot adopt.
All right. An international, repeat that again?
Sole male applicant cannot adopt.
All right.
A man
can't adopt.
Who is not Kenyan cannot adopt.
And in the case of, I think, adoption in Kenya, we were talking about this. If you're a single mother in Kenya, can you adopt as a single mom? Can you adopt a boy as a single mom in Kenya?
The law says if there are special circumstances, you can be allowed to adopt if you are a single lady. The courts have tried to define what are the special circumstances. With the current crisis where we are seeing more boys growing up in children homes, age becomes a special circumstance, especially when a boy is above 3 years. He's unlikely to find a family. Okay. So that becomes a special circumstances a lady can adopt. Previously, there was an argument that if a child has minor disabilities, then the lady can adopt. Okay. But liberally, the courts are more or less saying
it can change. We'll talk a little bit about the boy child later. I know Pamela had expressed concern that there isn't enough being done to adopt a boy child. I just want to go through some questions. A lot of people say that adoption, the process of adoption is very tedious, it's very long, and that's what discourages them from doing it. Is that a myth or is there fact to that?
It's a myth. The process of adoption is very simple.
Okay.
One, we must appreciate that we must guard against child trafficking. So we must vet the applicants properly.
Okay.
The vetting process can take anything between 2 months to 3-4 months at most. And after that, they are placed with a child. They board for 3 months. Sorry. After the boarding period, the court process starts, which takes another 3 to 6 months, depending on how fast you are. So in total, you're looking at approximately 1 year.
Okay. Some people say it's taken 2 to 3 years, sometimes 5 years. What happens in those instances? What's going on?
It depends on how diligent those particular people are.
Okay.
Take, for example, there are many steps that you must take. When you make an application, the agency will ask you for a list of documents. How long does it take to deliver the documents?
I see.
Once that has happened, and you are boarding with a child for 3 months, then you are told, find a lawyer. How long does it take you to find a lawyer?
Okay.
After you've gone to court, you are required to be evaluated by the Adoption Secretariat. If you are given an appointment and you don't turn up, the next appointment might be 3-4 months down the line. So all those factors.
Depends. How long did it take you, Pamela, to adopt your daughter?
It took me just a year.
A year?
Yeah, just a year. My papers, everything, I was done.
All right.
I have the adoption order.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, maybe just relating to both Simon and Pamela. In her case, she's adopted a young girl. In instances where someone has adopted, is it possible for the biological parents of that child to turn up and say, I want my child back?
Once the child has been adopted and the adoption order has been given, all the usual safeguards have been taken into account. The investigations have been conducted to ensure, one, that the biological parents have consented if they exist.
Okay. But they changed their minds.
They cannot change their mind after the adoption order has been granted.
But can they see their child? Are they allowed access to visit and take them out for a drink or for lunch? Or there's no...
Once you have adopted, that's your child. Okay. Would you allow a stranger to do that? They don't have that right.
Right.
And the law extinguishes that right completely.
All right. You wanted to comment on that?
No, the adoption order is final.
Yeah.
Once you have the adoption order, you have all the rights to that child, like the way a biological child is to a biological parent.
Would you adopt again, Pamela, if you're given the chance?
Yeah, I would adopt again.
Okay.
It is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And the bonding of that child is so strong that, like for any other child. The way people say that these children, there is nothing. That child has bonded in my family. She has bonded in my church environment. She has bonded in with my neighbors. She's just like any other child.
And I know, Simon, you were telling me the same thing earlier. Your mom, your adoptive mom, who of course you consider your mom, just treated you like a mother would treat her son, and nothing, it wasn't different at all. That's what you were telling me.
Yeah, it wasn't different. In fact, sometimes I find it weird because I was actually a very naughty boy as I was growing up. And the fact that she stood that and she brought me up, she never at any time said that this is not my child, regardless of how naughty I was. At some point I had to change schools a lot because I'd go to school, I don't want to go to that school. I would tell her, no, I don't want this school. She would transfer me to another one. At some point I was expelled from high school.
Wow.
She still, in fact, when I was expelled, I was expecting her to get mad at me. But instead she was concerned. Now, my son, you have been expelled.
Okay.
So how do I help you?
All right. Well, we'll come to that. We have so much more ground to cover. We have to take a short, well, we have to cross over to Hussein Mohammed. We'll come back and continue the discussion. Still ask those legal questions. Remember to send them in. Use the hashtag MondaySpecialKE or SMS on 22422. Hussein will be standing by with a psychologist as well, Dr. Oscar Gidua, to talk to us about the psychological impacts. Hussein.
Right, the discussion is going on, Janet, and now we are joined in studio by Dr. Oscar Gidua, who's a forensic psychologist and also an assistant professor of psychology at USIU. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight on Monday Special. We're talking about child adoption. We heard what Simon Njoroge said,
That's right.
how he found out that he was adopted. There was also that danger the impact it has
Yes.
on both the parent and the child.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Well, first of all, I'd like to start, Hussein, by telling you that Simon's case is actually very interesting. And also Pamela's experience is also very good. You can also tell by the two people talking, they really have had a good experience over time. And that is usually what happens, contrary to what people might think, that someone who's adopted is going to be very different.
Right.
However, there might be some complications with some of the families or some of the people. For instance, if someone discovers much later, that's one of the biggest ones, when someone discovers maybe when they're about 15 or 16 years old. They might start questioning, why didn't you tell me this earlier, and all that stuff. As a matter of fact, in the research, it says that they're called later discovery people who discover later. So that could be a complication. There's also issues of self-identity sometimes, which someone might ask themselves, who am I really? Are these my parents? But it all boils down to what Pamela is talking about, that bond between the child and the parent. If you actually do your work well as a parent, there's not going to be that much of a problem. And as a matter of fact, it has been shown that people who are caring will tend to raise kids you will never know the difference, who's adopted, who's not adopted. And I also think that self-selection, people who might want to adopt are also extraordinary people, I believe. I don't believe that everyone would want to do that. So I think they already have what it takes to raise a child, absolutely.
So when do you tell?
That's a good question. I think it's pretty controversial. Some people say tell them when they're very young. I wouldn't say very young at 3 years old or 4 years old, but when you can actually be able to logically explain, even to the child in their own language, that they are adopted, but also explaining to them what that means, because already adoption sounds like a word from Mars. I mean, who knows what that means? But if you tell them that, yes, I don't know how to say it, I can't tell you exactly the same words, but in a way that the child will understand that, yes, I'm your mom, but I'm like the other mom, but I also love you the same way. I think that will be clear to them. It will also help take care of trust issues later on in life. The biggest problem is if you tell them at 17, they're going to not be likely to trust people easily, because they're going to say, I've been living a life for the last 16 years. Who should I trust now? So that's one of the things that you have to think about, especially the late discoveries are the ones that I have a problem with.
And when we have these problems, they should seek help?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that anyone who's in an adoptive situation can actually find some growth in finding support groups as well. If you're finding any difficulties, you could also seek out counseling or therapy, or even education. I think educating yourself more is really important, because I guess that's a missing link many times for when people want to do something. They wonder, why do you want to take someone else's child? Why do you want to live with someone else's child? Education is key.
It's key.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Again, Dr. Oscar Kidoza is a forensic psychologist and assistant professor of psychology at the USA. Thank you for making time for us.
A lot of you celebrating adoption, of course, child adoption. On my timeline, on SMS as well, a lot of you asking questions. We'll try and answer as many of them as we can now before we hear from Pamela and Simon about their own personal experiences, particularly the stigma that comes with adoption. Joram, financially, what kind of financial position do you have to be in to adopt a child?
You don't need to have substantial financial means. What you just need to demonstrate is that the child will be able to have a comfortable meal and a place to sleep.
Can one adopt more than one child at a time?
Yes.
Okay.
You can.
Is it possible for the adoption, I know we mentioned even with Pamela that it's final, is it possible for it to be reversed in future? The child may want it reversed, the parents may want it reversed. Is that possible?
It is not possible, and I'm sure some parents tried that in Muranga and the court said it is final.
So you're stuck with a child or a parent even though there's a lot of animosity?
Once you have decided to adopt, it is just like when you get your biological child. If things don't work out, what do? You can't return the child through the process. All right. There was another question about if a child takes your name, does it mean they're adopted? So if a man marries a single mom who has a son, does he now take the name of the father, or does it still have to go through the process? For you to be able to give the child a name and become a parent, you must go through the process of adoption. So we see a lot of couples who have married the other spouse with their other children, coming together, having an adoption, so that then the children are biologically theirs. All right. Or rather, they are theirs jointly.
Does religion play a role in adoption?
Not really. It doesn't matter what religion you profess. Adoption is across board.
All right. And I don't know whether I asked you this during the interview before. Can a Kenyan adopt an American, for instance? Is that possible?
Yes, Kenya is a signatory to what we call the Hague Convention on Intercountry Adoption. So you can adopt from any member country. Yes, you can go to US, you can go to countries like Netherlands, Sweden. Those are countries that have signed the convention.
Yeah.
South Africa has done so.
Okay.
So you can adopt from there. Ethiopia here has signed.
All right, so depending on the countries and what laws they have.
Yes.
One or two very quick questions. What's the maximum age that someone can be adopted?
18 years in Kenya.
18 years in Kenya.
The minute the child is 18 years and 1 hour old,
You can't adopt
you
them.
can't adopt.
In terms of the youngest age that someone can adopt.
It's a child of 6 weeks.
Okay, what about if I want to adopt? At what age can I do it?
You must be at least 25 years old.
Okay.
And the difference, and 21 years older than the child.
21 years older than the child you want to adopt. Any less than that's not allowed.
It is not allowed.
All right. Okay, we'll see if we can ask you a few more questions after that. Simon, so you found out when you were 18, that's 8, but you said when your mother passed away. How old were you?
I was 20.
You were 20. So what is it? Was it that people were whispering, talking? How did you then start to realize, okay, then I'm really not with my biological parents?
Actually, when people began to talk, what happened is that I started remembering things that happened so many years ago. For example, if you find a child in nursery school telling you that I can't play with you, you are bought or you are adopted, then it dawned on me that that child must have been told that by a grown-up. And that grown-up is within the community where you are living. So it means the community around you views you in a certain way that you didn't realize before.
All right.
So what that does, what it did to me is that it kills your self-esteem.
Okay, so it hurts you at that time.
You feel inadequate. You feel you cannot face people because you feel as if you are inferior. You are a second-class human being.
Yeah.
And it did erode my confidence a lot. It took me quite some time. In fact, when I was at the university, at some point I got very low. And so that I could get myself up, I remember I went to the university chaplain. And when I told him my story, I didn't mention the adoption issue, I mentioned some other things. But what he did, Father Mugonda chased me out of his office. And he told me, get out of my office and go first start reasoning like a university student. At first, I thought he was rude.
Yeah.
But when I went and sat down, it dawned on me what exactly he meant. I was dwelling on things that should not be a bother to me.
Okay.
And from that point on, I made a choice of
changing your mindset.
changing my mindset about the whole thing.
Have you ever wanted to find out who your biological parents are?
It's something that you can't let off your mind. Because as I say, it's like living in a house with a room that you have never entered. You don't know what's inside that room. It's only normal that you'll feel curious to know what's inside there. So for me, it's a void that I feel should be filled.
Are you pursuing it? Are you actually looking for them, or where are you in that situation?
No. What I've decided to do is because I think you may do it for the wrong reason. For example, one thing I know at this moment, I can't change my identity. So the reason I would like to know that is just to fill up that gap, but not go back there. It's not possible at this moment. I'm Simon Njoroge. If I go and find out that they are from Western, I cannot change my name, I cannot change my culture, I can change nothing. So the fact is, I'm whom I am today. So I'll go search just to fill that void, but not to go back there.
And you mentioned something very interesting to me. You said that sometimes you sit somewhere and you think, could that be my mom? Could that be my dad?
Yeah.
In a cafe or something.
Yeah, you'll sit and when people pass by, you think,
Or could that be my brother or
could that be
sister?
my brother, could that be my sister?
Okay, but you have 2 siblings, right?
Yeah.
All adopted by the same mom.
Yeah.
All right. Pamela, how do you, I'm sure there's a part of you that wants to shield a lot of this from your daughter. You may be afraid that she'll be stigmatized or teased. First of all, when do you intend to tell her that she's adopted?
At around age 6.
At 6. She's now 4.
She's now 4 years.
And then when the stigma, if it does come and she's teased, etc., how would you want to encourage her to know that she's just as loved as any other child out there?
I just want to encourage her, right from age 6. I want to tell her that I'm your mother, but I'm not your mother. You did not come from my stomach, but I'm just like your mother.
Okay.
I want to continue encouraging her. I'm bringing up my child in a Christian way. I'm in the children's ministry in my child, my church, and we talk about children. Yeah.
Very quick question for both of you. You mentioned to me there's a concern about the boy child. I know he's mentioned some of the legalities behind that. What is it for you that you're concerned about in that respect?
We've been visiting children's homes, and most of the children there are boys and not girls. The girls, it's a waiting list. You have to wait to be given a baby child. And more surprising is that even married couples would prefer a girl child and not a boy child. Maybe our legal expert here can explain why. I don't know why.
Before we go to him,
yes.
Simon, now you're an advocate for adoption. So what are you doing? Are you trying to make people understand the process or just encourage them to adopt?
I think from my experiences, when I reflect back, I realize that actually the problem is that people don't really understand what adoption is. The perception that you have on adoption is something that's out of, there's an information vacuum. So there's no correct information out there. So what has happened is that misinformation and needs have filled the gap. And I believe that the way forward is to fill that gap with the correct information. So mine is about telling people what really adoption is, encouraging them to adopt.
Okay.
Because I feel, for example, people feel that adoption is mainly meant for childless couples or individuals, whereas I believe the primary objective of adoption is to help needy children grow up in families. So people should begin to look at adoption from the child's perspective.
All right. Yeah. Would you adopt do you think you'll adopt in future?
I will.
You will, for sure?
I know I'll do that at some point.
Because you mentioned to me earlier, adoption is your life. You made an interesting statement about what adoption did for you.
Yeah, I believe I'm where I am because of adoption. Because as I told you before that, the fact that I was up for adoption at some point means that at that point there was something wrong with my life. And if I was left to be there where I was then, maybe I'll be in a different place.
Okay.
But because of adoption, I'm where I am today. I can sit here and say, I'm a valuer, I've achieved this in life. And I believe all those are because of my mom. She made me what I am today. Okay. And so I feel that adoption is a very noble cause.
All right.
And it makes me feel bad when I see a child in a children's home.
Okay, so you encourage people to go about and do it. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time. Thank you for your powerful words, Simon, and your story. Pamela, any final words you'd like to say to people out there maybe considering adoption?
Just encouraging people out there, not just childless couples, any person, maybe you have a lean family, as a way of expanding your family, please adopt a child and give a better life to somebody else.
All right, thank you as well. It's so amazing that you decided to take in this girl and she's your daughter now. I know she said, why is it that more boys are being left in the children's home? Very quickly, because of time.
Blame our culture.
Yeah.
You see boys come with complications of inheritance. Everybody thinks that a girl is going to be married and bring in wealth. But boys, you must invest and you must be able to give them something. I hope with the new constitution placing everybody at par and saying that everybody is entitled to inherit, that scenario will change. But people should also look at him and see he's turned out fine.
Yes.
I think every parent would want to have a young man.
He should be a spokesman.
As good.
Very quickly, is there the cost of adoption? What does it come to? Does it depend, like the legal fees, etc.? How much does it come to?
The cost of adoption is not much.
Okay.
The agencies that allege adoptions charge a token fee, which is sometimes not even enough to do the kind of work they do.
Okay.
The legal fee is also not much.
All right.
And if you are not able to pay, child law practitioners, normally we have a committee. We have an opportunity to do pro bono work.
Okay, so bracket, how much? 30, 50, 100,000, 150,000?
30 to 100.
30 to 100, that's the bracket.
Yes.
We're completely out of time, unfortunately, but thank you all so much for sharing your amazing stories. And then you have one more thing to say? Okay.
We are in the process of creating a support group for adoptees.
Okay.
And I would appeal to anyone out, because I know there are adoptees out there who are very fearful of speaking.
Okay.
They may get in touch with me.
Okay, we'll give out your contacts.
And we also have a Facebook wall they can like, Society for the Adopted Persons of Kenya.
Okay.
They can like the page, they can leave their messages there. It's a private group, only accessible to the members, so they don't have to feel intimidated by the members there.
All right then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Simon, Pamela, of course, Joram, for coming as well. Let's take a look at some of your feedback as we prepare to invite Hussein to join me and wind up. All right, parents who adopt a child are just like angels sent from above to a child's life. I really like adoption. It shows signs of humanity and love for God. At Gike Karanja says, special thanks to people who have taken a step in adopting children. They are real heroes. That's GK Karanja. All right, do we have any other tweets? Let's see, do we have any other tweets at all? No other.
We go to some few texts here. Lucy from Banana Hill says, thanks to those parents who adopt, they take care of their children better than some real parents. God bless them. And somebody here says, I'm Jackie. In 2010-2011, I tried to adopt because I have some difficulties with pregnancy, though I already had 2 daughters, so I wanted a son. Now, the process was so long and complicated until I gave up. I risked and gave birth to a son. Please make it a bit easier.
I think that's what's been answered, right?
About, yeah.
All right. Before we go, one more special surprise for one of our guests on the set. I'm sure she did not see this coming. That's for Pamela. It was Mother's Day yesterday. So let's take this for her. Wow. Happy belated Mother's Day. I know they're very big.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You so much.
We're celebrating you as a mom, obviously, and for doing such a fantastic, noble thing. I'm sure you're also very proud of your mom, wherever she is. We celebrate the women. We'll have something else for Father's Day. And thank you so much. All right. Hussein can't comment.
He's shy. But I don't think it is appropriate now.
No, of course not. Look at the happy moment. Why do you want to ruin it?
I'll keep this text for tomorrow.
Oh, gosh.
It's from Jackson Kahiga in Gilgil Airbase. Look, I'm just going to read it.
Okay.
It says, citizen, Niaje, dear Janet Bogwa, Ujumbe, that is a message to Janet. I can't sleep without writing to you. That's by Jackson Kahiga. Have you been written to?
I haven't been written to. But this is Pamela's moment. I know. Thank you, Joram, Pamela, Simon. And thank you all so much for watching Monday Special. I'm Janet Mbugua. God bless you. Good night.
Good night. I'm Hussein Mohammed.